I think we're live. Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
everyone.
Yay. Welcome to today's virtual write-in. It's just saying it's been a minute since we've all been together here.
It has. It's been what, since April? Seems like so long ago.
I know.
I'm glad to be back. And I
Me,
see some familiar faces, or some familiar names, which is always exciting.
yeah. I see people writing in the chat where they're watching from today, or some of them are sharing what they're working on for their writing projects right now. So feel free to drop that in if you want to share. My name's Catherine. I'm the communications manager at NaNoWriMo, and my pronouns are she, her, or they, them, and I'm in Berkeley, California.
And I am Ria Syriac. I am the programs fellow for Nano, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm writing from Texas.
Sweet. Awesome. We got somebody from Ireland, Denmark, Scotland, France, Texas, Wisconsin.
We're really everywhere, yeah.
Yeah. I love that people just join from all over.
Yeah, it's always the most like it's so interesting seeing all the writers and like all the places that people come from, and
Mhm.
it's always super exciting to see.
Yeah. Rachel says, just hit a roadblock in my scene, so this will be helpful, hopefully.
Yay.
Oh man, Nicole's
Um,
working on an astrology project, not for this, but I'm curious.
I see Mark V and Tamara are preparing for Camp Nano in July, which is exciting.
Yeah. Anybody else preparing to write your camp project in July? I've been bad. I still need to I still need to like create my camp July project. So if others of you are procrastinators like me, I'm gonna go ahead and drop that link in the chat if you still need to like create your official project, get in the headspace, be like, yes, this is what I'm working on in July. Because I know I
Yeah.
need that. I need that boost.
Yeah, same. But I'm planning on working on it's not a novel, it's a poetry collection. So it's not conventional, but still going on. I'm also trying to work on my novel. That's been a work in progress since 2016 though. So I don't know how successful that will be, but
It'll be great.
yeah.
The first draft that I completed took me literally 10 years. So like you're doing great.
Yes.
um, that's awesome though. And that is I love that you're working on poetry, because that is one of the great things about Camp NaNoWriMo as opposed to like, the main event in November, is that you can work on any kind of project that you want. So yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. And
Um,
set any goal and whatever you want.
oh yeah. You can set your own goal. Oh my gosh, I'm so out of practice on this. I'm like, what do I even say here? But yeah, in case there are people joining today who have not been to a virtual write-in before, basically what's going to happen is over the next hour we're going to do some chatting. So we'll keep an eye on the chat box and respond to some people. And if you have questions or stuff that you want to talk about with writing, feel free to drop them in there. And then we'll also be doing writing prompts where we'll give you optional prompts. That you can choose to use or not. And then we'll do writing sprints where we set a timer for like 5 or 10 minutes and all write together, to get in the groove, get those words down, and make a little progress on our projects. So
Yeah. So I guess we can get started on what today's virtual writing is about. So basically, in honor of camp beginning in T minus 2 days, or 1, 2, yeah.
depending on time zone.
We are, yeah, we're gonna we are going to have a build your own world kind of theme. So if you guys know, the camp like track for camp in July is world building, and so We're going to do a lot of resources and blog posts and everything related to world building, but we want to kick off with an introductory build your world virtual write-in that is a bit less like the normal ones where we write a lot of like continuing novels and instead spend a lot of time talking about world building and like building the foundations and expanding on the foundations of our respective worlds. So yeah, we're going to start off with a really simple prompt. It's going to be to write a letter to yourself for after camp. So if you guys know what futureme.org is, or any kind of future emailing software is, it's basically where you can send a letter to your future self. So what this exercise is basically for the end of camp, write a letter to yourself for what the person you'll be then, right? So what goals do you see yourself accomplishing? Where are you in your novel now, and where do you think you'll be then? What words of congratulations would you want to hear? You can all write this to yourself in like your little journal, or you can use the website, which we've linked. So whatever floats your boat. We'll give like 7 minutes for this one, just in case you guys did want to schedule yourself an email for the end of for August 1st. I think it's always super cute for me to receive these emails after, but you're also totally free to do this reflection on your own and keep it in the safekeepings of your journals.
I love that idea. I just realized I don't have my timer. Give me a second. I'm gonna get my timer out. So how long are we doing this prompt for?
7 minutes.
5 minutes?
7.
7. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Okay. I was 100% totally prepared for this. Okay, cool. So I put the prompt in the chat. I'll also put it in the video description in case people come in and or want to reference it and don't want to scroll back up through the chat. So yeah, writing a letter to yourself for after camp. Again, you can use the prompt or not as you like. And so 7 minutes, and let's get started writing now. It's about 3 minutes left. All right, time is up. Go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. If you want to share any of the things that you wrote during that prompt, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can put them in the chat, or feel free to like type down how many words you wrote during that prompt. Yeah, how'd that go for you?
That went pretty good. I do this like every once in a while whenever I'm like entering like a program or a new phase in my like life that, you know, has like a program usually. And I love getting these afterwards. I just feel so like, oh wow, this is so cute. Like my old self wrote me this, and it's always really nice to see it. So
That's great.
how'd it go for you?
Good. Yeah, I was kind of just like stream of consciousness, kind of writing down the things that were coming into my head. But I like this idea, and I used to be really into writing first drafts by hand, and I don't do it so much anymore because I'm so much faster at typing. But I still enjoy writing stuff by hand. So I'm thinking I might take some of the best things in my stream of consciousness and write myself a little letter and like seal it up and then open it in August or something. So.
Yeah, I used to write by hand too when I was like younger. I was like writing class and stuff like that. It became too tedious for me because then I have to rewrite the whole thing, which is I guess in good practice.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got lazy and I was like, nah, it's okay.
Yeah.
But I see that in the chat, people got some good words in. I'm glad some people like the idea. That future me thanks you, hopefully. And
I love
it's
Tracy.
okay.
Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead. You.
I was going to say, Tracy, I like this thing that Tracy wrote. It says, I reminded myself that even if I did not do the whole 50,000 words, any words I did write are better than zero, and I should be proud.
Exactly. That's the mindset to go for sure.
Yeah.
I love Devin's. Remember, practice makes perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be something. So I'm loving all these like positive and like reaffirming things you guys are telling your future selves. That's such a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, this is great by Storyfile. There's romance, friendship, forgiveness, and above all, hope. Hope that the world these characters live in can one day get better. And with it, hope that our own world will get better too. Oh, that's so great. I love that.
Another great piece of advice is from Elizabeth. One thing I wrote is that my pace is the best pace for me and my future readers. It's definitely true.
Yeah. That's a really good thing to remember.
I see a lot of people use Future Me for the first time. I don't know how I found it, but I don't know. It's something I always like doing and introducing to new people because I usually get good, feedback from it because people like hearing from their future, like seeing what they thought, how their past self thought and like, how things actually turned out. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I have been bad at it recently, but I for a while like journaled very consistently. So I just have these stacks and stacks of journals that sometimes I'll go back and be like, huh, what was like 14-year-old me thinking here?
Oh my God.
It's like it can be very embarrassing, but also quite fun.
I went back home for college and I was just looking at my journals and like these detailed character profiles that I would just write. And I was like, wow, this is so adorable.
I love that.
So there's some more great words of advice. Nimitriel said, if you didn't reach your goal, it wasn't for a lack of trying and it wasn't for a lack of spirit. Even if you don't feel that way now, you should still be proud of yourself. I'm so impressed by these very positive things you guys are telling yourselves. Like, this is like exactly what this exercise is supposed to do.
This is wonderful.
Awesome. So I mean, I loving all this. And so we can also go into our like discussion questions. So our prompts. So so going into like world building and stuff like that, I think a good thing to do is reflect on like what are we gonna like, what is it something that like I need to work on or like focus on and improve on. And I think Camp Nano is a great way to start focusing on and building those skills. And so what is a concept in world building that you guys struggle with? For me, I always make like my worlds really complex so that like people always tell me it's confusing or they like ask a bunch of questions like how does this work and how does this work, and like I might not really know the answers because it's that convoluted and that confusing, and so I have to like step back and scale back and add a little bit of reality and a little less eccentricism in my world just so that it's more digestible for other people, and at least for my readers.
Yeah, no, that's real. The struggle is real. I think, man, the one that I notice that I do a lot is I feel like it's kind of similar, but I get really involved in the history, and I'm like, wait. Okay, before we get to the action, I need to figure out what happened 900 years ago in this world. And that's maybe not entirely necessary. But then I ended up writing like I went back and looked at a draft the other day, and I ended up writing like literally 20 pages of like, oh, this is the entire like sociopolitical like history of this world. And I was like, well, this is useful information, but I feel like I got off on a tangent here. So
So yeah, and one of our exercises today is kind of like writing out your history, but definitely 20 pages is impressive. It's for sure. Like it's like a whole history textbook.
Yeah. I mean, there are some people who can do it, and I'm always impressed by the people who have like the story Bibles and like are
Yeah.
very like organized with everything. I'm not. So
I think I need a bit more of that though, because I underdevelop like the history of my world. Some people ask me questions. I'm like, good question. I don't know. So I think a good balance is where the golden spot is. But some people are like saying that Malin says it's hard to try to it's hard. I find it hard to not do too much exposition at the beginning of the book when I have to do world building. Like I just want to dump the info in there and be like, okay, on to the story. Yeah, mood relatable.
yeah.
Um, in one of our previous virtual write-ins, we did world building as a topic, and one of the exercises was to world build through dialogue and have your characters say some things. And so that's a good exercise to do if you struggle with that, because you don't have to explicitly say everything. You can leave things to be for the reader to understand, or you can like sprinkle them in through dialogue.
Yeah, Phyllis says, I'm writing a memoir, so I have several worlds that I'm exploring. And Tracy also talked about like using a real place, but giving it a fake name, which I have definitely done before. But it's funny because like usually you think of world building in terms of like, oh, like you need to world build for fantasy novels or sci-fi novels, but like you're still doing it even if you're basing your story off a real place, because you have to decide like, because there are some things like, I don't know, I grew up in a small southern town, and sometimes I like set stuff in a small southern town and I'm like, how much of this can I actually use and how much of this do I have to change so that like people don't get really angry at me if this ever gets published, you know?
And like even if you're writing like in the modern world, like if you're writing from Paris, like not all your readers are going to know everything about Paris. And so you're still world building, even if it's just like elaborating on the setting and the world that your characters are in.
Yeah.
Tamara is
go ahead.
World building for a distant future and trying to imagine new problems that the world would have.
Yeah. I mean, so much of sci-fi does that. I mean, even if you're not writing sci-fi, but that's just immediately came to mind. Like sometimes you read stuff that people are writing in the 30s or the 50s, and you're like, oh wow, these are the issues that we're facing today. Gearhead Metal Factory says, I struggle with the physical layout of world building because I piece it together and not build a world up front, which is also real. I also, somewhere around here, I don't think I have it readily accessible, but I did also like sometimes I have to draw out maps for my world just to be like, okay, actually, where is like this thing located?
Yeah, I definitely understand that just like visualizing worlds is very difficult. Like it requires a lot of effort on your part and anyone's part to fully understand the scope of like this whole universe that they're creating. But let's see. I find it hard to balance exposition and info dumping. So yeah, that's a common issue that a lot of people have. That dialogue exercise is great for that. Raymond says, I have huge issues with magic systems because I end up rabbit holing into the magic system and the logistics of magic and science. Yes, I understand in the opposite way, because I do the opposite thing. I like just ignore it that it exists. I'm like, oh, it just happens. Like, just don't. But then there was one time where I like got really into the science of it, but the science was all wrong. And so my friends were like, no, just don't put that in there. Like you don't fly because your body has more buoyancy. And I was like, okay, sounds good.
This is why whenever I write sci-fi, I try to be as intentionally vague as possible.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we move on to the next prompt?
Yeah, this is a great discussion. I loved hearing what everyone, was thinking. So our next prompt is we talked a little bit about how Catherine writes the whole 20-page history of their novel, but this exercise is a smaller version of that. Basically, we want you to write down a history of your world as if you were giving someone a crash course on it. So not quite 20 pages, but maybe like one or two. Just like focusing on like the very significant and fundamental political, social, and economic influences that make it what it is. Just so you can like within yourself prioritize certain things. So this is a great exercise for people who both underdevelop and people who both overdevelop, and trying to like, figure out what are some of the really main things that are important for your story. And of course, as always, if you don't feel like you want to do this prompt, you're more than free to just like use this time to do your own writing project as well. But yeah.
All right. Cool. So how long for this one? 10 minutes?
Yeah, let's do 10.
Okay. Great. All right. Setting my timer for 10 minutes and let's start writing now. About 4 minutes left. All right, time's up for that writing sprint. Go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. Again, if you want to share what you worked on or your word count in the chat, feel free to put that there.
Yeah. How'd that go for you?
Pretty good. Yeah, I got through. I need to become better at being a little less long-winded because I got through like a fifth of what I wanted to say. So I think this is a good practice for me. How about you?
I mean, every world has their own, like nuances. Like some will require more than others, but yeah, it went well. It's just complicated because I have 3 worlds, so I'm like, I guess I'm starting with like it's like 3 in 1. I don't know. It's like this whole, which makes it very difficult to write because I don't know. It just is, it's a lot. Anyways, and so it went well. Definitely will have to work a bit more on it, but yeah. I'm glad people in the chat are, seeing some, they're seeing some stuff. Tracy says, I looked at the history of my setting and learned a few things, which is really good. That kind of research is really, really important. Denise says, I start with the name of the place, then add in buildings based on the character's job, hobbies, needs, and then move on to details that relate to others in my story.
That makes sense. I saw, sorry, it's back up in the chat a little ways. Storyfile says, I suck at describing things, so I look up pictures and try to put myself in them and then describe what I'm seeing, hearing, etc. for some of the world building stuff, which is a cool exercise. I want to try that sometime.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know if I'm missing anyone because mine is loading like weird, but Kate says the main problem is when writing memoirs, you need to create a snapshot of that time and place, what the weather was like, how cold it was, were the clothes any different or now or worries. So yeah, memoirs are definitely interesting because you're writing from the past. So it's definitely, you're writing from the past, unless you're writing them like complicated. Either way, I'm not gonna think too hard about that, but yeah, I can definitely see how world building can get a bit more complicated and nuanced when you're writing a memoir.
Yeah, I also like, and sorry, I don't know if you read this one already, but Knitting Feeling, talking about their character being from a working class background, trying to blend into an academic environment and making the sense of the differences in these worlds. Yeah, because that is world building too, of like talking about how characters navigate, different class systems and stuff in their worlds.
Yeah. This has answered many of, New Kit says, this has answered many of my questions about my world that I have been trying to figure out for months. Got into how my dystopian government formed and got power. That's amazing. I love to see that.
That's so great.
Yeah, whenever I do the exercises, I'm like, okay, this is the hole I have. I need to fill it. And then I just make up some story and then it fills it and bam, it's in the book.
Nice. This world building sounds so cool, and now I really want to read this book by Nymthariel. It says, Lux is a world of magic, bursting with life, diversity, and untold horrors. Umbra is a shattered planet where magic dies, and the survivors of a great apocalypse eke out a living on floating skylands. That sounds so cool.
That's really cool. So yeah, I mean, there's so many cool worlds in here.
Yeah.
I see, a lot of people. I know that Lois is writing their world in a real world in Colombia. So yeah, a lot of research too goes in there. I always find that writing like true to this world, historical or like current place is harder because I'm like, you have to represent everything carefully, pretty well. Otherwise you might offend somebody or you might, create something that you don't want to. So props to everyone who's, setting is in the real world, because that kind of world building is really crucial and, often understated.
Definitely. And, I like first drafts, you should just kind of get stuff down. But I often feel for stuff like that too, like having other people to read it is really important, because sometimes especially if you're writing in a real world, they can figure out like, oh, hey, you're missing this thing over here. Like, what about this? So
absolutely.
Anita Gwynn said, made me realize what type of people I am dealing with. I love that. I love how like figuring out the world can also help you figure out the people who live in it. So
yeah. So I guess we can go on to our next discussion topic, which is what is a period of history in your world? What period of history in your world would you like revisit and go back in time to? So if you don't get that, what that question means, it's like for example, like in my book, like there is a period of history back in like the first the onset of like the whole competition that is the base of the book, and I would like go back there just because like it's like it just was an interesting time, and like it was where a whole new world order was being formed. So I personally would like to go back there and explore that a bit more.
Cool. I love that. Yeah, I was thinking about specifically, this isn't necessarily the one that I'm working on right now, but the story where I accidentally wrote 20 pages of world building before getting into the actual story. Um, was I guess I was taking a lot of like influence from actual historical events, and like particularly like the Roman Empire expanding and breaking up and all that kind of stuff. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, it would be really cool to go back into the world of that story, but like
Mm.
see what happens with those things. Because I was kind of like looking at them as like, oh, this is how they influence the characters that I'm actually writing about. But
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely. Gearhead Metal Factory said my world back in the 1930s and 40s, sorry, during the diesel punk era. So
Like,
yeah, that would definitely be an interesting era to go back to.
mhm. It makes me think too of like stories that I've like read or watched, and like sometimes like especially if like a series or something is really popular, they'll do like sort of an offshoot, um and like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and going into Legend of Korra, and it's like same world but totally different vibe because there's like all the technology that's come up and all that stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Um, Ellen says, I like that I have my mom as one of my beta readers. She has 80 years of knowledge of the world I write about. Not quite far enough to go back in actual time, but she definitely has been told. Yeah,
that's great.
absolutely. I think we can go into, I didn't realize we've been running through this virtual write-in, so I think we can go into our next prompts that we end promptly.
Hey, see what you did there.
But okay, so our final prompt is kind of a piggyback off of our last discussion question. So your character visits another time period in the world. This could mean the past, it could mean the future. So what is it like? What does it look like? How do like people sound? How is it different? How is it the same? Whatever questions you want to explore, what do your not parents, what does your character, what would they go back to, and what do you think that they would learn or discover about their world?
Cool, I love it. All right, how long's the sprint gonna be for?
Let's do 10 minutes. So we have some
Okay,
time.
great. All right. Okay, I got a timer set for 10 minutes. So let's start writing now. Got about 4 minutes left. All right, time is up for that prompt. Go ahead and wrap things up. Again, if you want to share either what you wrote for that prompt or your word count for that prompt or your word count for the entire virtual write-in, feel free to drop it in the chat.
That's always a fun one for me. Because I always find that I learn a bit more about the world, my world, and like the foundations that it was built on. So yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like I also learn a lot about my characters and kind of how they react. Sometimes when I read books, like it makes sense in the story to like read along and be like, oh yeah, they like fall into this weird situation and then do this. And sometimes I'm like, whoa, if that actually happened to me, I'd be freaking out right now. So, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I see in the chat, Tracy wrote 477 words and may have gotten some usable stuff in there, which is awesome.
Yes. Raymond got 367. Lois got 190. T Nash says these are great prompts. Thank you. So thank you to Rhea, who's the one who came up with the prompts for today.
Thank you. Joe said only a couple dozen words, but good ones.
Nice.
That's always good. Yeah.
Raymond also
Wow.
figured out what kind of world the story's villain was from. That's exciting.
Oh yeah, that's always an unexpected development.
So Lois Bushman, my main character, is 400 years old. I love that. I mean, I'm not sure like if that's old or young in who your character is, but I really love main characters who are like old and still going on adventures. So.
Yeah. Storyfile said my main character actually leaves my fantasy world at the end of the series and comes back to our world. And when he does, Henry, I can't read Roman numerals, but just became king. Oops. That's funny.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, well, we just got a minute left, so thank you everybody for joining us today. This was a lot of fun to get back into things. Yeah, and I want to, since we've been doing so much world building stuff today, I'm going to drop the link again in the chat to all of our world building like materials and resources that we've got up on our website. Also, I want to shout out that tomorrow at 2 p.m. Pacific time, so like half an hour later than this one started today, tomorrow we're going to be doing a webcast also specifically about world building with a couple of folks from World Anvil and For the Words, which are two of NaNoWriMo's sponsors. And like World Anvil specifically focuses on world building. That's their whole platform. So they're like super the pros on world building stuff. So if you have more questions about that, and For the Words is a really fun kind of like gamified writing platform. So they also have a lot of cool world building stuff. So if you want to learn more about that, tune in tomorrow at 2 p.m. We'll be doing that webcast. Yeah, Rhea, you have anything else you want to share?
I mean, good luck on Camp Nano. You guys are going to do great. And for world building stuff, we have a lot of good stuff on our blog coming up about world building. So if you are interested, definitely go check that out. We want to post a good amount of times a week. And hopefully, and if you guys want to write any posts about world building, just fill out the contributor blog post form and I'll reach out to you.
Yeah. And don't forget to announce your projects for camp and start updating them on July 1st, because that's in a couple of days. So yeah, we'll be doing these weekly on Wednesdays throughout the month of July. So we will see you guys next week. I'll see some of you tomorrow if you're going to the webcast. But yeah. All right. Good luck on your writing, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.